up, man? It's the unapologetic gent. I'm back again. Had a lot of people ask me, what do I feel and think about Lionel Messi joining Inter Miami, and frankly, I'm disappointed. I actually live in South Florida. I live not even 15 minutes away from the stadium that he'll be playing at, but the reality is MLS is a retirement league. We've seen players do it in the past: David Beckham, Zlatan, Steven Gerrard, Wayne Rooney, Thierry Henry, Frank Lampard, Kaká. Lots of former great players come to the MLS, and what it signals basically is that he's done at the highest level. And I know, a lot of people still think he's the best player in the world. Basically, Cristiano Ronaldo did the same thing when he went to Saudi Arabia. That's also just a retirement league over there in Saudi Arabia as well. And in my opinion, Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, for the last 2 years, I don't think they've been the best two players in the world, if I'm honest. Obviously, their reputation and still putting up numbers kind of disguise that. But if you're watching them week in, week out, they don't have the same influence on games that they had, 3 years ago. So from that standpoint, I'm disappointed because it's an end of an era. I think Messi and Ronaldo, based on their actual talent and the numbers that they put up and the things that they achieved, I think they've had the two best careers in football history. I don't think they're the best player in football history. I don't think they were the most talented player in football history, just my personal opinion. But I do think they had the two best careers, very similar to LeBron James, per se. Like, I think Michael Jordan's the best player I've ever seen, but I do think that LeBron has probably had the best career when you think of longevity and things like that. So for them to be at such a high level, to score so many goals for so many years and be so consistent and be the first or second best players in the world for 10, 15 years is incredible. It is, and it's to be admired. But I even though I live 15 minutes away from the stadium, I will not go watch Lionel Messi in the MLS. And frankly, simply just, it's not a good league. If you looked at all the leagues in the world, it's probably 11th, 12th best league in the world. I know some people are going to say, oh, you have to go see Messi. But when you go to a retirement league like this, you're playing with worse players. You're playing against worse players. You're not, iron sharpens iron, right? So when you're not training with top tier players, your level is going to drop. So anyone that thinks Messi's level has been dropping since he got to PSG in the first place. If you look at, for example, I think Haaland scored 52 goals this year in 53 games. Messi and Ronaldo were doing numbers and higher for 10, 12 straight years. So, they haven't been at those levels, in my opinion, for the last 3 years anyways. But obviously, he's considered by many as the best soccer player ever, at very worst in the top 5 ever. Obviously I didn't get to see Pele and Maradona and Johan Cruyff and guys like that play. But he's definitely in the top 5 people that I've ever seen play football. And it's just an end of an era. There's pros and cons. Obviously, it brings more eyes to the MLS, but the MLS just isn't good enough. The second tier English league's better than the MLS. And you look at the last World Cup, if you look at all the U.S. men's national team players, I think only one guy started in a World Cup game that didn't play in one of the best leagues in Europe. Those guys don't even play in the MLS. So that tells you the level. And I get it's going to bring more eyes. I've seen, ticket prices for, Messi's first game are higher than the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals now, To each their own. Just me personally, I'm not interested. So I won't be going to see him. I almost had the chance to go see him at an El Clasico, and I missed it. And that's one of the biggest regrets in my life, was not to be able to see him and Cristiano Ronaldo in El Clasico. But I'm not interested in seeing him in the MLS. I'm sure Ronaldo, when he's done at Saudi Arabia, when he's 40, he'll come to the MLS as well. I get it. They're, one of the most marketable people in the world. Messi's the flagship athlete for Adidas. It makes sense. So I get why he did it. But to me, immediately, once you go to a retirement league, you say you're not interested in being the best player in the world or one of the best players in the world. Obviously, both of them will still play for their national team. I assume Messi will keep playing at least for another year or so. But, those torches have finally been passed. And obviously, like, that torch should have been passed to Neymar, but because of injuries and things like that, he hasn't been able to fulfill what everyone thought. But in terms of trophies, goals, assists, things like that, I think Neymar is the most talented football player in the world right now. Whether his application and injuries will allow him to show that is a different story. But I do believe at 31, he's still at the peak of his powers, and I'm sure he'll go to somewhere in England this year, maybe, hopefully, and then show people again that he took the mantle, and then that mantle will obviously be passed to Mbappe and Haaland, who I don't think, from a footballing skill standpoint, are in those guys' class, but they'll put up the numbers that should say, people think, stats people that think those guys are the best players in the world. So, I'm happy for Messi. I know he has a big condo here that he bought a few years ago. I'm pretty sure he's involved with some businesses down here. It makes sense. He only speaks Spanish. South Florida, you don't even have to speak English down here. So I get it. It's tropical lifestyle. There's no state income tax. So, that's why I live here. So I get the appeal. I understand it. As a soccer fan, I'm sad to see that he's not willing to test himself at the highest level anymore. So, they won't get me to go buy a ticket. I'll tell you that right now. If I got one for free, maybe possibly, but it's unlikely. I don't want to see him in that league. The competition's not very good. So, the MLS gets second-rate South American players. They don't even get the top South American players or Central American players. Those guys go to Europe. So, the only reason why some people will come to this league instead of, going to Brazil or Mexico is because the infrastructure here and the lifestyle. But, obviously there's more talent in the Brazilian leagues than there is in the MLS. So, from that standpoint, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe his wife and his kids, I'm sure they'll love it here. It's a great place, wonderful, but people talking about he's not the best player in the world. He hasn't been the best player in the world in the last 2 years. He did win the World Cup, but guys ran around for him. And he's still, from a technical standpoint, is one of the best players we've ever seen. But he doesn't have the legs, can't really run past people anymore. So it makes sense for him to come to the MLS. Assume he'll drop a little bit deeper, be more of a playmaker. His quality alone will allow him to do ridiculous things in the MLS. But I want to see people compete at the highest level. It's the MLS is the equivalent of, a guy, Tom Brady, playing in the NFL and then going to play semi-pro on the weekends with guys smoking cigarettes and working as plumbers for their day job. So that's just my opinion, and I watch all the major leagues. I've watched some MLS, and the standard's just not very good, honestly. So, and the best American players go play in Europe. So that tells you everything you need to know. I know the Miami fan base is happy. People that I know that I work with, oh, Messi's coming, blah, 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 blah. But for me, it doesn't really do anything for me, honestly. Hopefully my home value continues to rise because of it. I know, LeBron James raised the home value in South Florida when he came, so I'm sure Messi will have a similar effect. But apart from that, doesn't really benefit me, not really interested in it. So, it is what it is. And, people will call the France and Farmers League, the French league's 10 times better than the MLS could ever dream of being. The top 5 or 6 leagues in Europe, the MLS will never get to that standard. So that's the reality. Doesn't have the tradition, doesn't have the academy set up, and doesn't have the interest, frankly. So I think football is still maybe the 5th or 6th most popular sport in America. And that's fine. I'm more than happy to watch European soccer, and that's where the best players play. So I know a lot of people are excited about Messi being here. I'm just not one of those people. It makes sense from him. He's 35 years old, family life, family situation makes sense, but from a purely footballing standpoint, it doesn't move the needle for me. It definitely moves the needle for MLS. I know people are comparing David. He's a 10 time. Anyone that doesn't watch football, he's a 10 times better player than David Beckham could ever dream of being. Ever dream of being. And think about I remember how big it was for David Beckham to come to the MLS. So I'm sure it'll be tenfold. And then, all the South American fans, I'm sure more of those people will start to come to games as well. People that fanboy, and that I'm just not that type of person. So Messi being down the street doesn't really mean anything to me. I'm sure I'll run into him at a restaurant or something, but it's just not that serious. So that's my opinion on it. It's good for the MLS, but overall for football and what he basically just decided that he's not interested in competing at the highest level, and if anyone's deserved that, it's him. So I'm happy for him, but in best player in the world discussions, he decided himself that he's no longer going to be in that. So that's my opinion on it. It's the Unapologetic Gent. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll continue to give you more content. I'm out.